I recently made a video discussing something that has been puzzling me. Why do many parents teach their children to be honest, kind, and loving when they are young, but then expect them to become worldly, shrewd, ingratiating, and adaptable as they grow up? I put the video link in the upper right corner, and I came across a viral article recently. Like really viral. Hundreds of thousands of likes, tons of comments, and almost everyone in the comment section was saying the same thing. This is so real. This is how society actually works. This should be taught in school. And the title? If you want to suffer 10 years less in life, you must master one skill: surviving micropower. From the astronomical number of likes and the chorus of acclaim in the comments section, you can see how the suffering on this land ceaselessly springs forth. Now, if you're from the West, that phrase probably sounds a bit weird. Micropower? What does that even mean? Let me translate it into something more familiar. It basically means how to deal with small authorities in everyday life. The security guard, the clerk behind the counter, the hospital receptionist, the local official, people who don't have huge power, but have just enough power to make your life difficult. I truly understand this during the COVID-19 pandemic, and I will make a video to talk about my unforgettable and painful experiences during the pandemic in China. And the article's main argument is simple. If you want to survive in society, you shouldn't just follow rules. You need to learn how to deal with people. You need to be flexible. You need to be smooth. You need to understand human nature. And sometimes, you need to give a little something. A pack of cigarettes, a small gift, a friendly tone, a bit of flattery. Because according to this article, that's how things actually get done. And here's the part that hit a nerve for a lot of people. The article says, why do so many good kids grow up to struggle in society? You know the type. They followed rules their whole life. They listened to teachers. They obeyed authority. They did everything right. But when they enter the real world, they feel stuck. They feel frustrated. They feel humiliated. They go to a government office and they get ignored. They try to handle paperwork and they get blocked. They follow procedures and nothing moves. And then people tell them, "You're too rigid. You don't understand how things work. You're too idealistic." In other words, you're the problem. The article calls this something like a moral arrogance social anxiety, which is a fancy way of saying you're too upright to survive. And that's where the article flips the whole narrative. It says, the problem is not the system. The problem is you. You don't know how to play the game. Because in reality, rules are not everything. People are everything. So instead of arguing with rules, you should learn how to make people like you. Instead of insisting on fairness, you should learn how to create flexibility. Instead of saying, "This is not allowed," you say, "Hey, I understand your situation. Could you help me out?" And maybe, just maybe, you bring a small gift. Now let me pause here, because this is exactly the moment where a lot of people reading this article felt something like relief. They were like, oh, so that's why my life is so hard. It's not the system. It's not the rules. It's not corruption. It's just, I don't know how to behave. And honestly, I get why this feels comforting. Because it gives you control. If the problem is the system, you're powerless. If the problem is you, then you can fix it. You can learn. You can adapt. You can become better at life. But here's the problem. This entire logic is deeply dangerous. Because what it's really doing is something very simple. It's shifting responsibility from the system to the individual. Think about the examples the article gives. You give a security guard a pack of cigarettes, and suddenly he lets you pass. You give a small gift, and your paperwork gets processed faster. You say a few nice words, and the rules become flexible. The article presents this as wisdom, as emotional intelligence, as understanding human nature. But let's call it what it actually is. This is not being smart. This is a transaction. You give something, you get something. And when that something is access, approval, or convenience tied to someone's job, that's not social skill. That's corruption. Now, I know some people will say, come on, it's not that serious. It's just a small favor. It's just how humans interact. But here's the key question. If the rule says no, and a gift turns it into yes, what exactly changed? Did the rule change? No. Did the system improve? No. What changed is the price. Now suddenly access has a hidden cost. And here's where things get even more interesting. Because the article tries to make a comparison. It says, rich people pay for VIP lanes. They pay for faster service. They pay to save time. So why shouldn't ordinary people use small human gestures to do the same thing? Sounds reasonable, right? Except it's not the same thing at all. VIP services are transparent. You know the price. Everyone can access it. It's part of the system. But what the article is describing, that's hidden. It's informal. It's unequal. It depends on relationships, mood, and opportunity. It's not a system. It's a workaround. And once a society starts running on workarounds instead of rules, something very dangerous happens. People stop trying to fix the system. Because why bother? If you can solve problems by knowing people, why push for better rules? If you can bypass obstacles with small favors, why demand accountability? Sometimes I think, isn't this the current situation of Chinese people? They can work hard and do heavy physical labor their whole lives without complaint, but they are unwilling to make the slightest resistance or change. They call it diligence and consider it a virtue. Slowly, quietly, almost invisibly, the entire system starts to decay, not because it collapses, but because it becomes irrelevant. And this is where the article becomes really troubling, because it doesn't just describe reality. It normalizes it, tells people, this is how the world works. Accept it, adapt to it, master it. And if you don't, that's your fault. You're too naive, too rigid, too clean. Think about what that does to people over time. It trains them, not to question power, but to accommodate it. Not to demand fairness, but to negotiate around unfairness. Not to improve systems, but to survive inside broken ones. And eventually, something even worse happens. This behavior becomes culture. People start to believe, everyone does it. This is just how society works. You'd be stupid not to. At that point, corruption doesn't even feel like corruption anymore. It feels like common sense. And when that happens, you don't even need enforcement. People will regulate themselves. They will teach each other. They will pass it down. Let me show you how things really work. And that's how a system of rules slowly gets replaced by a system of relationships. Now, to be fair, the article does touch on something real. It talks about how frontline workers, like guards or clerks, often feel disrespected. They deal with frustration, pressure, and constant complaints. And yes, treating people with respect matters. Being polite matters. Recognizing someone's effort matters. But respect is not the same as exchange. Kindness is not the same as payment. And emotional intelligence should not become a tool for buying favors. Because once it does, you're no longer humanizing the system. You're monetizing it. And here's the most important point. If a system only works when you give extra, then the system has already failed. Rules are supposed to make things predictable, fair, and personal. They are supposed to protect people from exactly this kind of negotiation. Because without rules, everything becomes subjective. And when everything is subjective, power becomes personal. And when power becomes personal, it becomes something you can buy. So when I read this viral article, I didn't just see practical advice. I saw something else. I saw a society trying to cope. People are frustrated. They feel blocked. They feel powerless. And instead of fixing the system, they're being told to fix themselves. Be softer. Be smarter. Be more flexible. Learn the art of micropower survival. But here's the uncomfortable truth. If everyone learns this skill, then no one escapes the system. You don't reduce suffering. You redistribute it. Because every shortcut you take is someone else's delay. Every favor you buy is someone else's fairness taken away. And in the end, you don't get a better society. You just get a more efficient way to live inside a broken one. So yeah, maybe learning how to deal with people can save you trouble in the short term. Maybe it helps you move faster, get things done, avoid conflict. But if that becomes the default way society works, then the cost is much bigger than 10 years of personal struggle. The cost is the system itself. And once that's gone, everyone pays for it, whether they realize it or not. I am Lino. I have to cover my face and use an AI voice because I often cannot help but express views that the authorities dislike. And I live in a country where even accessing YouTube is banned. If you want to understand the China you don't see, subscribe. See you in the next video.